Okay, well, welcome to Late Night with Lovecraft eZine. Today is May the 17th, 2014, unless you're on the East Coast, then it's now May the 18th. And we do this every Saturday night at midnight Eastern, and we also talk about Lovecraft stuff on Sundays at 6 o'clock Eastern. So, anyway, I've been gone for a few days because my illness kicked into high gear, but I'm back, so I'm glad to be back. And good to see Matt Carpenter. He's been out for a little bit, so good to see him. All right, so you better unmute that, Nick, because you brought this up. This Godzilla versus, didn't you? Godzilla versus Cthulhu thing.
Okay, who here has watched it already?
I have not watched it.
I have seen the latest one, yeah. And this whole debate will depend on which version of Godzilla you're going with. Because this version is considerably more powerful than the earlier ones.
Don't give too much away. I'm going to go see it tomorrow at 1 o'clock, 3D IMAX.
Huh. But that's probably not much of a spoiler. He's way more powerful than the last ones.
Yeah, I would certainly, you know, when I was watching Godzilla in the 60s, King Kong and Mothra could beat him. and he needed help to beat Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Now you got to be honest that it was in the American version that King Kong beat Godzilla. Because in the Japanese version, Godzilla beat King Kong.
Yeah, but Mothra still beat him in all versions of the original fight. And when they first introduced the three-headed monster, they had to take Rodan, Mothra, and Godzilla to beat him. By the 1990s, Godzilla was beating Ghidorah by himself.
I just remember that John Langan is this is really something important to him. So I'll have to tell him to watch this show.
Well, there are some slight Lovecraftian elements in the current movie.
Well, that's good. I'll have to go see it. Well, I guess my thing is, no matter how powerful Godzilla is, he's essentially a mindless monster, right? I mean, Cthulhu is an intelligent god.
True.
So, that's my first argument.
It's also ridiculous. Did you watch when I watched very little of Saturday Night Live, but when I was much younger, there's an episode with, believe it or not, Kirk Douglas, and he was starring on this faux TV show called What If, and it was like, what if Spartacus had a Piper Cub?
Yeah, I remember that.
Like, after that
of course
episode,
it's ridiculous. That's why it's fun to talk about.
What if God and Superman got in a fight?
What if Superman was born in Germany?
Right.
So that was the more interesting one.
Yeah, they did a Russia. They did a USSR one. That was pretty good, actually.
No, one of my favorite topics, or at least not favorite topics, we've talked about it before, is what about Superman versus Cthulhu, and not so much who would win, but you know, he's such a Boy Scout and such a glass half full kind of guy that you know he'd have his mind shattered and by the truth behind the universe, you know, not what he thought it was.
He's an alien.
Well, they had a Justice League cartoon where they had Cthulhu, in all intents and purposes, battle the Justice League.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a difference between fighting a monster that looks like Cthulhu and the cosmic horror and fear and everything, you know.
Right. The telepathic powers are sometimes discounted, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
If Cthulhu spells, he could also utilize Superman's weakness to magic.
Yeah, that's true. So I take it no one here is in disagreement that Cthulhu would win. Right?
I still like Superman, but that's a tough decision. I wouldn't be able to say either way.
I'm sorry, I meant Cthulhu and Godzilla.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'd be Cthulhu probably.
Now, of course, it's a whole different thing if we talk about Cthulhu and Batman, because as we all know, Batman always wins.
We know your favorite here.
Yeah.
He has the Batman sign on his utility bill.
Wasn't that
What?
Mike Mignola who answered it?
Yeah,
The
yeah, there was.
Doom that came to Gotham?
Yeah, that's a pretty good one too. That's a damn good comic. It's was it 3 or 4 issues? I
It
forget.
was a 3-issue series.
Yeah.
It's hard to get now for each issue for less than $20, I think.
Well, if
Paperback
you
version.
have the means, it's definitely worth it. It's a very good for everybody listening out there. The Doom that came to Gotham. Mike Mignola, is that how you say his last name? Wrote it, and it's set. It's an alternate universe, you know, an Elseworlds, but it's set the 1920s, and it was surprisingly well done. So you've read it, right, Rick?
Beautifully
No,
illustrated.
I haven't read it yet
Oh,
because it's a little too expensive. I'm hoping that someday it'll be reprinted.
it deserves to be. What were you going to say, Matt?
It is beautifully illustrated, I gotta say.
Yeah. It's a bit Derlethian. I was slightly disappointed in that. I won't give any spoilers besides that, but still, I thought a really good story.
Well,
You know?
think about when it came out. And it was like before the current wave,
Yeah.
which means it had to have been conceived and written like in the late 90s. So it came out in like 2000. So that was the prevailing view.
Yeah, I don't fault it for that by any means. Um, um, it's, I mean, if you're a Batman fan, if you're a Lovecraftian, I mean, you're going to love it. That's just all there is to it. You're not going to love the price, but I'm actually surprised they haven't reprinted it, or at least put it on Comixology. I read a lot of comics on my Kindle these days, and at Comixology.com. So I'm surprised they haven't reprinted it there digitally. So
You could, I know that, like, I don't know, I think they could sell it as a graphic novel, you know, all 3 issues at once.
oh, definitely. I think people would buy it.
Well, if the Shadow over Innsmouth, the new Shadow graphic novel is a success, maybe that will bring back Batman.
Wait, when was this? What?
I don't think it's come out yet, but there's a Shadow over Innsmouth comic coming out.
Who's the creator?
From Dynamite, which is the Shadow in Innsmouth.
Oh, right. Yeah, I seem to remember something like that. I wish they'd send me.
This is the first time I've heard of it.
It was in it wasn't published as of a month ago. I've got to check if it's. I don't remember what the date is for it.
Well, I need to see if they'll be nice enough to send me a review copy. Not everyone's that nice, but what's the title again?
Shadow.
Here it is.
It's literally the title of Lovecraft's story.
Oh, okay.
They're just making the Shadow something else.
It's actually got a picture of a gunslinger on it shooting some tentacles.
Well, let's hopefully it's better than that. So, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm being rude. Matt Wiseman and Nick are here. This is the first time I've met Matt. Nick Nicario, of course, is with Chaosium. And Matt, what were you telling me right before we went live that you're working on?
So, in previous years at Origins Game Fair, we had the Cthulhu-thon, which is an entire track dedicated entirely to Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
That went away for a little while, but now it's back again for the first time this year. And we have 2 groups there this year running games. There's going to be a whole, most of the top floor of the C-Pod at Origins is going to be dedicated to the Cthulhu games, just general Cthulhu stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, tons of prizes. We get prize support from Chaosium, Cubicle 7. Waiting to hear back from a few others. So lots of free books given away. Tons of fun, cool gaming. Good time.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Matt. Ken Scroggins on the message board says, well, Batman would ram Cthulhu with the Bat boat. And Kimberly replies, he's probably got some Cthulhu repellent in his belt somewhere.
Yeah, I was thinking the bat elder sign right next to the bat shark repellent. That's why I said.
Yeah, and and the whole cosmic fear thing wouldn't faze him in the slightest. He'd be just like, well, yeah, hell, I knew that. So, maybe he ran into Cthulhu earlier this week. That might explain the sad Batman thing.
Well, it's like you're going whether it's Adam West Batman or Kevin Conroy Batman or Shark Repellent is Adam West.
It doesn't matter. There's, regardless, a flashback to when he already did this stuff before. It's bad.
Hey, getting back to the Shadow over Innsmouth, the blurb is interesting. It says, when Lamont, Cranston, and Margot Lane find themselves trapped in Innsmouth, terrible truths will surface. Truths only the Shadow can know. That's what they mean by the Shadow.
Well, I think they mean both, don't they? Yeah. That's a close second to Batman in a Lovecraftian story, the Shadow. So, hopefully it'll be good. Does it say when it's coming out?
I don't know. I'd have to register for the website. It says on sale update is April 9th. So probably a little late, so it's due out.
Wow, I can't wait till April 9th then.
It wasn't out as of April 24th when I was at the Windy City, so the Windy City Pulp Convention in Chicago wasn't out.
And who's publishing it again? Do you know?
Probably Dynamite.
Oh, right. Okay. I just want to briefly bring this up, and then I'll get off of it. But we got a Kickstarter going right now for these films that we're wanting to do. Lovecraft eZine story adaptations. I've got a link to the Kickstarter at the website. If you go to lovecraftzine.com, Lovecraft eZine website, all the links at the top of every page. If you look to the right, top right, there's one that says new eZine films. And we're doing pretty good. I mean, we're a third of the way there with 2 weeks to go, so hopefully we'll make it. So if you want to see some really kick-ass films, if you're talking to people watching now, you want to see some 3 great short films based on Lovecraft eZine stories, and please help us out. The really cool thing is that Doug Jones from Pan's Labyrinth and a million other places. Hellboy played Abe Sapien. He was in that Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode with he was I think he was the head gentleman. And very, very talented guy. And he's got his fingers crossed for us. He wants to be in the films too. So if you want to see Doug Jones and acting in a Lovecraft eZine film, please help us out. And then the lady that starred in Absentia, which I've talked about a million times, very, very cool Lovecraftian film, and it's actually free to watch on Netflix streaming right now, or free if you pay $9 a month or whatever it is. Absentia is a very good Lovecraftian film. She starred in it. Her name's Katie Parker, and she signed on to do one of the short films as well. And as a matter of fact, she's going to be on this show next Saturday night, talking with us. So we can talk with her. So anyway, hopefully that works out. Oh my God, we just hit 18,000 since I announced that. No, we didn't. Have you guys seen Mr. Jones or a movie called Blood Glacier? Have you guys heard about those?
I haven't.
No.
Not ringing a bell.
No? Blood Glacier. Mr. Jones is supposed to be a really good horror film. Blood Glacier actually looks kind of Lovecraftian.
I saw the trailer to it.
Did you? Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
it
it was
too.
pretty creepy looking.
Scientists, this is from the Internet Movie Database. Scientists working in the Austrian Alps discover that a glacier is leaking a liquid that appears to be affecting local wildlife. Which, reading that, it sounds like it's a documentary, but it's a horror film. In the preview, there was a lot of mayhem going on, right, man?
Sorry,
I don't know.
guys.
Looks like it could be Lovecraftian. I was just wondering if anybody'd seen it.
I didn't even know if it was out yet.
I saw it on Amazon. I think they occasionally do movies where you can watch them before or while they're in theaters on Amazon Instant Streaming. It costs a little bit more, anywhere from $6 to $9 instead of the usual $3 or $4, but you can rent it. And I noticed that Mr. Jones 2, which I don't think is Lovecraftian but looks really, really good, is out on Amazon as well. So anyway, if you're I don't know. I'm hoping the Blood Glacier film is Lovecraftian, and hopefully it's good. But yeah.
I think, was it the last time I remember tuning in to this show, you talked about a new comic book series coming out from Boom Studios called The Woods. I got the first issue of that. It is not directly Cthulhu mythos, but it's sort of Lovecraftian in the sense the mist is Lovecraftian.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically a high school in Wisconsin just is suddenly transported to a dimension on another world.
Okay.
And there are a lot of creepy monsters in the woods, and a plucky group of high school kids decides they have to leave the school and head into the woods to try and solve the mystery. So in the sense that it is like suddenly there's this dimensional shift and people are in this hostile environment, it's sort of like The Mist. Do you remember the movie The Mist, where there was that kind of bat-winged creature that got into the store and they had to knock it down and kill it?
Yes.
There's a monster similar to that gets into the gymnasium. But not a lot of tentacles, no direct references to Cthulhu. It wasn't a shift because someone was messing around with an eldritch tome. It just happened for no reason.
The plot is similar to a book that Stephen Mark Rainey wrote called The Nightmare Frontier, which had a town in, I think, Virginia get shifted into another dimension.
Well, we've talked about this quite a lot, of course. It doesn't have to be directly mythos to be Lovecraftian, for lack of a better term, the cosmic horror aspect. So.
Right, and right now this is like, in a way, it's kind of a typical comic book in that it's about these high school kids with stereotypic personalities who are going to go on this adventure in this setting of their high school has been dropped into a different dimension that appears to be deadly.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of emphasis on the stereotypic high school character, so it's kind of like
it's an anti-bullying film.
Trans-dimensional, but I don't know about horror per se.
Maybe more Buffy than Lovecraft.
Maybe. It's like it's supposed to be a 6-episode series or 6-book series. We'll see.
Now, what did the blurb describe him as plucky, or was that you?
I beg your pardon?
You used the word plucky. Was that you, or was that the description?
That's me, because, okay, it starts off, 2 girls on the field hockey team are moaning to each other about their college applications, and then some high school doofus runs by streaking, so they start chasing him with their field hockey sticks. We meet a couple of other nerds, and the principal seems kind of harassed, and suddenly they're in this new dimension. So you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just every time I hear the word plucky, I'm thinking, what the hell does that actually mean? You know. And can you describe a guy as plucky?
They show a little bit of grit with a little bit of humor.
Yeah, can you when you say the word plucky, we're getting off topic here. But when you say the word plucky, can you ever describe a man as plucky, or are you always describing like a young girl as plucky? I mean, I think plucky applies to women, or at least young women. So, I don't know.
I'm sorry, we're cracking up over here because I was described as plucky a couple months ago, and it was like,
Sorry, Nick.
He's plucky.
We're like,
You're so plucky.
what's plucky?
He's plucky.
Well, you know,
Okay,
maybe
so,
a man
let's
has
talk about
plucky,
Nick.
a woman is plucky.
You are plucky, yeah.
Yeah,
What's
well,
going on with Chaosium lately?
You know, pluck off.
Yeah, pluck off. How's Chaosium going, Nick?
I got the proof for Steampunk Cthulhu in on Thursday, and I sent it to him on Friday, so that should be printing right now.
Good.
Awesome. My favorite question is, how's Horror on the Orient Express coming along?
That's at the printer too.
Oh, really? Awesome. Yeah, we want to run that on Friday night sometime soon.
Yeah, I don't know how soon until the PDF will be available. I'll try to get it out ASAP. Or we'll try to.
No, I'm not rushing. It's not a question of me rushing you. It's just more a question of knowing which dates to plan for, you know.
Yeah.
So, Kimberly says you have to be plucky to work. Kimberly says you have to be plucky to work for Chaos.
Plucky young lad.
I'm working on a list of, I'm going to be posting it this coming week, a list of a permanent page on the Lovecraft eZine website, a list of Lovecraftian games, and not kind of games that you do, Nick, but computer and console, and basically electronic games, whether it's PC, PS3, Xbox, Commodore 64, Android, iPad. So I'm working on that list. I'm sure it'll be incomplete, and as soon as I publish it, someone will tell me I forgot something. But
I believe they just got you like for the game.
Yeah, there's this one company, Focus in France. They came out with a series of Sherlock Holmes investigative video games, and they're coming out with a Call of Cthulhu one. They've posted a bunch of stuff all over the web, but I don't know if you guys have heard anything or not.
no, they talked to me. I talked to them on the phone once or twice, and they basically said that they'll let me know as soon as they can release some more information, but they don't really have much to release. They basically released a couple of pictures.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we've seen. Is just the concept art that they've gotten so far.
Yeah.
They have a Facebook page too, and they've shown off 2 concept character images, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I want to organize it by, basically say, okay, here's the game and the average price. Like a lot of them are free. Like you can play some of the older ones for free.
Yeah.
That text adventure game, Anchorhead. You can play that for free. I don't know if you guys have heard about that one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're watching this. Look up Anchorhead, just like it sounds, spelled just like it sounds, on the web. And it's a really, really, really well-written text adventure game that you can play for free. So, kind of like the old, not Chaosium, Infocom games. If anybody's familiar with those.
Oh yeah.
So, You played Infocom games?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
cut my teeth there too. Mother Goddesses and Phalos.
Did you play the Lurking Fear? Or Lurking Horror, which was one or the other?
I miss that. I grew up in very, very rural Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I played a computer game in my youth is unusual. I'm that generation.
The other thing, Matt, I'm glad you're here because I want to talk to you about this. When I started the website, Matt Carpenter, sorry, it wasn't too long before, as you know, I created this page of recommended Lovecraftian books, and I need to figure out where to go with this because since I created this page, people have tossed a lot of books have been written. I've been sent a lot of books for review. What I did at the beginning was I basically looked at my bookshelf and I said, okay, what are the good books here? What are the best ones here? And divided it in novels, short stories, and so forth. But I don't know where. It's hard to know what books to recommend because there's so many out there, and do I just pick the ones that are? I mean, I don't even know. There's so many out there. I don't even know where to start.
It's impossible. Frankly, it's an impossible task. I can't even keep up with what I'm supposed to keep up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Making the list of books that I'm supposed to keep up with, I can't keep up with the list, let alone the books. The other problem is, and this is, just a reflection on the fact that you are a very welcoming person and you're very nice and everybody likes you, and now you're viewed as a source of publicity.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? And therefore it's like, well, I'm going to send you my book and you're going to recommend it irrespective of if it's crap or not.
Actually, that's not true. If I like it, I recommend it. If I don't like it, I don't say anything.
Right. But the point is that you get inundated with submission.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Well, what's been happening lately is people send me stuff, and I say, well, I don't know when I can get to reading it. I mean, I hope I can get to reading it sometime soon. And 6 months goes by, and I still haven't had a chance to read it.
This is also your work, because you are doing things in multimedia, which is so unique to the eZine, with your video chats, and you're trying to promote films, you're trying to be a film producer, you are promoting graphic novels and podcasts, you've got your book that you're publishing, and now you're publishing a print edition, and you're also doing audio versions of these books, and there's only one of you.
Yeah, there's only one of me, but it's not like like what you just mentioned, the audios of the issues. It's not like I do those, the volunteers.
No, but your energy gets pulled in all of these different directions, and that comes out of your reading time.
Yeah.
I frankly have found
you're absolutely 100% right, because occasionally, I mean, quite often actually, I feel like I wish I could just take 2 months off and do nothing but sit around and read, but then the magazine would suffer. So it's a real balance. And as far as recommending, I want people to go to Lovecraft eZine and go, people that haven't that are kind of new to Lovecraft, to go, okay, after you get done reading Lovecraft himself, where do I go from here? And I want that page to be kind of at least a good starting point for people,
It already is, and I actually find that the series that you're doing now of 5 recommended stories or 5 stories of interest to a given author or publisher or whatever, I find that to be a fascinating series.
Thanks.
And it certainly is another guide that people can use. I think you shouldn't. It's going to be very difficult to keep up with every brand new book that comes out, much as I would like to. And
Well,
I think it'd be very
I don't think
difficult
I
for
can
you.
do
You're
that.
probably just going to be have to resign yourself to the. You recommend them as you can.
Yeah, I don't think I can do that, but I think the page is a little out of date. Is all I'm really saying. You know, if it got updated once or twice a year, that's really the best I could do.
That's very reasonable. I don't think you should, especially, you know, being honest, sometimes you overextend yourself and then it punishes you for a couple weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do that.
That was weird.
Good.
You know, we need you healthy in publishing, man.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate what you said about the 5 recommended short stories. I had that idea a few months back, and I do think that's fascinating. It's fascinating to see what different authors, editors, you know, reviewers come up with. And for those who don't know what Matt and I are talking about, I basically emailed a bunch of authors and editors and you know, people in Lovecraftians basically, and I said, hey, what are not your top favorite? Because that's an impossible question. But what are 5 of your favorite Lovecraftian short stories? Not novels, but what are 5 Lovecraftian short stories that you think are pretty essential, or you know, pretty important that other Lovecraft fans read? So, you know, I did the first one, and let's see, Laird Barron did the second one, and Olivia Llewellyn's done one, and several other people, John Langan. You sent me a list. Did I publish? Yeah, I published yours last week, didn't I?
No, another thing that you were doing, we did it for a while and it just kind of fell off the wagon because of your commitments to the film festival, but you were doing a book club.
Yeah, and it wasn't just me. I think I was throwing too much at people, like read this, you know, even once a month. Sometimes it's hard to get to a particular book. So I just thought, you know, well, once in a while we'll say, hey, why don't we read this and talk about it, that kind of thing.
But that would be another avenue for you to address, you know, what might people like other than reading Lovecraft. And then the onus is not completely on you to dissect the book.
Yeah.
Or it might be better to do that just with a short story, which doesn't take as long as reading a book.
True.
That's a good point too. In fact, we don't even have to come up with a list. We can these 5 this list of 5 series. We could pick some off there and go, okay, everybody read this one in the next couple of weeks, and let's talk about it. You know, that's a good idea. What surprised you most, Matt, and Rick too, or whoever wants to pipe up, with what people came up with, like people like Laird and John and everybody, the stories that they came up with, Olivia Llewellyn?
Boy, you're putting me on the
No,
spot.
if I put you on the spot, then no,
No,
because
it's because I just don't have the grasp of the list. What, you know, on Llewellyn's list, Ms. Llewellyn's list, she listed an author where I just haven't been able to connect with the author. You know, I'm not saying it's bad work, it's just work that doesn't speak to me.
Right.
And so it was kind of interesting, and it makes me want to go back and reread the work of this author whom she found so fascinating that, okay, what am I missing? It kind of like, you know, Joe Pulver's novel, Nightmare's Disciple. Willem advocates it so passionately, it's on my list to reread because it's been many years since I opened it.
Right.
And I figure, heck, here's a guy who's a poet and a really great author and an editor, and I need to go reread this because Willem's got pretty good taste, you know?
Yeah, he does. Okay, so I pulled up Olivia's list, and she talked about her. She did that internet when the live journal of Zachary Marsh, available to read online.
Okay, that story, that has like really not an iota of originality to it, except for the setting.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it's written as a live journal kind of puts it into the modern parlance. You know, my kids are talking. I barely understand what the hell they're talking about. You know, they're talking about, okay, it's her favorite ship. What do you mean ship? You know, when two people together, it's their ship. Their relationship? Yeah, their relationship. Their ship.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I don't speak modern. I don't speak modern kid anymore. You know, it's like, so to actually read this story and it's set as a live journal, which I don't got a live journal, I found that really kind of fascinating the way it was written with the little links and pop-ups and emoticons. Very clever, but the content is very old hat Innsmouth.
So wait, ship means relationship?
Was it Lisa Punch?
Apparently to young teenagers, like when they're talking about Game of Thrones, the ship that they want to work out, you know? Like, okay, well, like I'm too old to comprehend this. Why don't you just talk human to me, you know?
Thank you.
Well, then the other four were, of course, Pickman's Other Model by Caitlin Kiernan.
Brilliant.
A Colder War by Charles Strauss.
Brilliant.
The Infernal History of the Ivy Bridge Twins by Molly Tanzer. And The Forest by Laird Barron.
Kind of hard to argue with Laird Barron.
Yeah, you know, I think if he keeps working hard, he's gonna get noticed. You know, he might even get a Stoker someday. Then oh yeah, Rick gave us his list a few weeks back. Styx by Carl Edward Wagner.
Classic. That's classic.
Yeah. The Valley of the Lost by Robert E. Howard. I knew there was going to be a Robert E. Howard story on that list.
That's a little unusual one for him, the way it ends.
I read that. I actually had forgotten it, and I took out my horror stories of Robert E. Howard and read that after I saw the list. It is. It's not his usual fare.
The Shadow from the Steeple by Robert Bloch, of course, classic. The Worm of Uraku by Richard Tierney. And Cold Print by Ramsey Campbell. So
Tierney's story ties into Dune, but when I read it, I knew nothing about Dune, and I still liked it at the time.
That I actually pulled out my copy of the Scroll of Thoth. Is it in there?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to read it, but it got sidetracked.
And then
I reread that.
You know, I sent that email out to a bunch of people, and Laird was on the list too, and Laird literally emails me back like within 7 minutes with this list of 5. You know, so I'm like, wow, you've thought about this. His list, huh? His list. I'm sorry. Did you say something, Rick?
Yeah, I was going to say Matt raises an interesting point. We read so much mythos fiction these days, we can't remember them all.
Yeah.
And when somebody comes up with a list and says, "Yeah, I read that," I've got to pull my book out and see what, you know.
Oh, there's a Robert Price said something to the effect that his library was so big now he could start over at the beginning and start reading, and it'd be like all brand new because he didn't remember any of it. It's like, that's how I feel.
Well, I'm actually in awe of Rick. You say that, but then someone mentions an obscure story on this show, and you and Rollick are like, "Oh yeah," and you start talking about it. I'm like, "What the hell are they talking about?" And then,
well, that may be true in Pete's case, but see, my thing is, I know all the early stuff.
Yeah.
Because I had to reread those a lot, just to, because we didn't have Chaosium encyclopedias in those days. To look up who Cthulhu was in Yog-Sothoth, so you had to keep constantly rereading the stories to get the mythology down.
Mm.
Isn't that what young people do, like young teens?
I know those guys cold, but Laird Barron I don't know cold.
I used to reread all of Clark Ashton Smith frequently.
So
Not
what?
anymore.
Well, and Pete's that way too. I see I know what you're saying, Rick. But then the next, I'll be like, yeah, hell, have I read it? And next day I'll float out, thinking about what you guys were talking about on the show, and I'll be like, oh right, I read this 5 years ago. I remember the story now, but I have to look it up. In most cases, if you describe the plot, that's a little bit different. Then I remember it. So here's Laird's list. Children of the Kingdom by Ted Klein in Dark Gods.
We had discussed that pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, and same book, Black Man with a Horn. Riding the White Bull by Caitlin Kiernan. Fat Face by Michael Shea. And The Autopsy by Michael Shea. So.
What I find interesting is Children of the Kingdom, with its very slow development and in-depth exploration of characters and reality that is slowly twisted around them, that's a lot like Laird Barron's work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Laird's work is a longer short form, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And there is extreme character development setting these people into a normal situation, which then gets twisted all around them.
That's interesting. I had not thought that way before, but you're right. Thinking of the plot behind Children of the Kingdom. I mean, it's on my list of 5 too. It's absolutely one of my favorite Lovecraftian stories. If you're watching the show and you're like, okay, where the hell can I read this? Just it's in a book called Dark Gods by Ted Klein Riddle, T-E-D Klein. Most people watching the show probably know all about it, but just in case you don't, I don't know. It's hard to describe what I like so much about Children of the Kingdom, but it's just such an awesome story, and using the 1977 New York City blackout as a backdrop. So, I think I had a story on my list that surprised you, Matt, which I got some satisfaction over because you're so well read. The Shadow on the Doorstep by James Blaylock in Cthulhu 2000.
I went and I reread it. I went and I pulled out my copy of Cthulhu 2000. It was actually a very pleasant experience to pull it out. I reread The Last Feast of Harlequin. There were some really nice stories in that book. It's a great book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. That was my first one. In by Stephen King is my second one. The letter N.
Is the story as printed any good? I always look at the graphic novel.
Oh yeah, it's great. But I'll tell you the best version of it, even though there's several versions. Several adaptations, is be more specific. Yes, the answer is yes, it is. But the absolute best way to experience the story, in my opinion, is to listen to the audio version. Of the collection, Just After Sunset, and listen to the story in. They've got at least 3 different voice actors on that story. A female and 2 male. A guy playing the guy's sister, a guy playing the psychiatrist, a guy playing the patient, and it's very well done. It's very. I've said this many times again, but I challenge anybody to listen to In at night as you go to bed with the lights off and listen to it, and not get spooked, because you will. So.
That always reminded me of Horror of the Dark. I thought that was King's version of Horror of the Dark.
Of Corner of the Dark?
Yeah, of Lovecraft's the Horror of the Dark.
Oh, Horror of the Dark. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, interestingly, he says it's not a Lovecraftian story. It's a. It just went out of my head. who he based that on. Uh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'll think of it right after. But I don't see how it can not be Lovecraftian. I mean, you know the plot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty Lovecraftian. Anyway, especially if you got an Audible.com membership, especially download Just After Sunset and listen to the short story In with the lights off. So, Children of the Kingdom. Laird, I was on Laird's list too. That's on my list. The Shifting of the Sands by John Connolly in a book called Nocturnes. That's his short story collection, and it's really, really great. There's actually several kind of Lovecraftian themed stories in that book, and some just regular, just straight up horror stories that aren't Lovecraftian that are really damn good too. I think it's a really, really good book. Again, the name of it is Nocturnes. I highly recommend picking it up. And my last one was Salt Air in Dead But Dreaming. So,
Is that Mike Menace?
yeah. See,
Yeah, it's a great story. I think he has moved away from Lovecraftian publishing, but gosh, he's a good writer.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Even if I'd read a story like 6 months ago, most of the time, unless it's someone I've read a lot, I wouldn't be able to just grab the author's name out of the air like that. So.
Well, that's because it's Mike Menace, and he's really great, and he never got his due, and it's kind of hard to track down some of his work. I think didn't he write a Small Ghost in Arkham Tales or something like that about Brown Jenkins? Like the health department gets a complaint about rats.
In the walls?
Well, it's Brown Jenkins is leading a pack of rats or something.
Didn't he have a lot of stuff on that Nightscapes fanzine that the Cthulhu?
Oh, Ed Berglund's
It was on well, I forget his name on that website. Reader's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos or whatever it was.
You talking about Mike Menace?
Are you talking about E.P. Berglund?
Yeah, E.P. Berglund.
Berglund, yeah.
He had the Nightscape fanzine. I think there's a lot of Mike Menace in there.
He wrote that story Chartreuse, which is a great King in Yellow story. It reminded me of. Did you ever read the book The Forgotten Soldier by Saget?
No.
About a Frenchman who ends up fighting in the German army and how he survives the Eastern Front and ends up getting back home, and it was just his experience in the war. And Chartreuse reminded me of that actual true life biographical book. It's just so well written. If you really want to get Mike Menace's stories, he had a book published. It was one of those double books. Half of it was in German, and the other half, you flip it over, it's the same stories translated into English. So, like, that was how I got most of his stuff, because the rest of it, I think, was available. For a while, it was available free online.
Yeah. You know what the title of this collection is?
Anencephalus something.
Okay.
I could find it.
Well, I could
Go ahead, Rick, I'm sorry.
search for it in Book Finder. I can find it there.
While you guys are doing that, I should mention you brought up Nightscapes, E.P. Berglund. That's I forget how many issues he had out. Was it like 5 or 6? Hey, Pete. But they're all still out there, free to read online. If you Google Nightscapes and E.P. Berglund, I believe you should be able to find it, no problem.
I think he had something like 15.
15? Okay. I mean, it's good stuff, and it's not going to cost you anything to read. Rollick, are you drunk?
I will not admit to just coming home from the bar and
It's not that you seem drunk, but I just knew you told me that you went out and you were hurrying home.
Yeah, I'm a little inebriated.
Did you see Pete's updated Facebook photo?
No.
The action version of Pete grinding his teeth.
Yeah, that's Pete. That's Pete's bowling photo.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, anyway, yeah, we were having a good time, and it was farther away from home than I thought it would be. So sorry for being.
No, it's fine. Good to see you. We've just been talking about a bunch of stuff. We were talking about that list of 5 that I've been posting lately.
Yeah.
5 favorite, not top favorite, but just some of people's favorite Lovecraftian short stories. Did you send me a list, Pete?
I have not, because I don't know if I can pick just 5.
Well,
Just bear in mind they don't have to be your favorite. It's not like it's your top 5. It's just 5 that you think people should read.
All right, I'll work on it tomorrow.
It's not something common. You know, if you put something on the list that, if I put this on the list, let more people know about it.
Oh! Only the end of the world again.
I've never heard of that one. No.
Yeah.
What about a little-known story called something Emerald? I don't remember.
The Study in Emerald?
Yes, that's it. Yeah. I think it deserves some attention.
Yeah, it doesn't get enough.
Yeah. Well, and I just finished the Mind Parasites by Colin Wilson, and now I'm reading Philosopher's Stone.
All right.
What did you think of Mind Parasites?
Oh, I liked it a lot. I didn't think it was. I mean, he says it's a Lovecraftian story. I don't think it's overly Lovecraftian. I get the feeling that the Philosopher's Stone is more Lovecraftian.
Right.
So,
and then there's the third one that you should read is Space Vampires.
Right.
And if you can find it, he has a novella. I think it's called Lords of the Kinrath or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me do some research on this. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just.
Well, and I heard that.
You don't mean Return of the Loigor?
Yeah, there's Return of Loigor, but he has a novella that's in a like an ace double, but it's not an ace double, but like that.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to remember what it's called.
Well, and the blurb on Philosopher's Stone, which I'm only not even 10% into now, but this really grabbed me for obvious reasons, because he basically says it's a Lovecraftian time travel story.
Right.
So I was like, oh, damn, I'm getting right on that.
The problem I have with Wilson Lovecraftian stuff is he's got the Lovecraftian concepts down right, but whenever he quotes Lovecraft, he gets the details wrong. Like in Mind Parasites, he says Abahoth even Clean was created by H.P. Lovecraft. It was created by Clark Ashton Smith.
Yeah, those are the little details.
I mean, conceptually, he's got the Lovecraftian concepts down. I mean, he's not doing mythos fiction; he's doing Lovecraftian fiction.
Well, and plus, didn't the very reason why he wrote these is because he criticized Lovecraft sometime in the '60s really hugely, and someone said, well, why don't you write a Lovecraftian novel? I don't have this exactly right, but it was something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But the thing, what happens is, he picked up, we were talking about mythos reference works.
Mm-hmm.
He picked up Lynn Carter's glossaries. And the problem with Lynn Carter's glossaries is that he never says, this is Lovecraft, this is Smith, this is, Frank Belknap Long. So if you pick up one of those, you may think Lovecraft created every book and deity in the Cthulhu mythos.
Don't ruin this for me, Rick.
Sorry?
So don't ruin this for me. I love believing that. Don't kill this for me.
Yeah, Nick Carter lapped up everything. Never met a thing he couldn't blurb.
But he was in.
I feel indebted to Lynn Carter, but God, the man couldn't write.
He was a better editor than he was a writer.
Oh yeah, that Ballantine series was formative for me. It's like a pillar of my early reading.
Yeah, he was basically the Pete Rawlik of his time.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
No, he was good, man.
Ouch. Yeah, so...
Okay, so he wrote a book called Tomb of the Old Ones.
Why does that ring a bell?
That's in the Antarctic cycle by
Yeah.
Robert M. Price's Chaosium book.
Yep.
Chaosium. Never heard of him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, speaking of Pete Rawlik and writing, so I see your books on the weird companies on Amazon now.
Yeah, it's not just on Amazon. It's insane.
Well, I like the
Finished
cover.
it?
I haven't checked in a couple hours, but the last time I looked, we were number 11 on genre mashups, and we were number 2 on genre recommendations.
Which
Yeah, Amazon
book is
lists,
this,
right?
Pete?
The Weird Company.
It's not really a mashup, though, is it?
I don't make up the genres, and I don't put them. Right now, we're number 14 on genre fiction mashups.
Well, I linked to it yesterday, so...
And yeah, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I was surprised. I didn't know it was available. I saw it and I was like, wow, I gotta tell people.
Yeah.
So is this for pre-order?
It's for pre-order.
Yeah. So this is the sequel
The
to
last time I
Reanimate.
looked, it was.
Hmm?
It is. It is. It is not. Hartwell appears in it, and he is a major character, but he is not the primary protagonist.
Oh, cool.
Well, that's good.
I'm sorry?
But the
That's a
question
different
I want to know
angle.
is there
Yeah.
any sex in this book? Is there any nudity, sex, sexual scenes, anything like
There's
that?
shotgun sex.
I mean, you know what I'm asking here. Do things heat up? You know.
And then things heated up. Well,
You get. Well, I know it's going to have references to more horror movies than anyone ever saw, except Pete.
actually, so the funny thing is that Reanimators takes place over the course of 25 years, and I threw a lot of stuff in there. Weird Company literally takes place over the course of a couple days, and there are some flashbacks and longer periods in those flashbacks, but I've actually had to be very restrained about bringing in other characters, and because I'm confining myself to a good portion of the book takes place in Antarctica. There's not a lot of crossover capability there. You just can't walk down the street and just run into Charlie Chan or Sherlock Holmes.
You could too. His number 3 son.
Yeah, no.
That's a future story for you.
No,
Charlie Chan in Antarctica.
So,
Joe Contour just wrote on the message board, am I the only one who, while listening to these chats, is furiously updating their Amazon and Audible wish list with all the books they're talking about?
no, you're not, and I haven't figured it out that is the purpose of these chats, is to sell, sell, sell.
It is?
I just backed another Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's the actual purpose. Yeah.
That's why we muted earlier, so I can log in back.
You know, look, you know what? If you don't get anything from this chat tonight, besides obviously Buy the Weird Company, that's number 1. But number 2 is go to Audible, get Stephen King's Just After Sunset, and listen to the short story In
That's
the Dark.
It's 10 o'clock.
That's right.
And Back Whispers from the Shadows.
Yeah, oh, and by Dark Gods by Ted Klein.
Yeah. Oh, and if you want to, so my son and I went and saw Godzilla.
Oh my God, we were talking about Godzilla versus Cthulhu right at the beginning. So yeah, go on.
All right. I'm not gonna, but
No, no spoilers.
No spoilers, but after the movie's over, my son sits down with me and he says, "Dad, you know that story you made me read, the one you wrote that's in Kaiju Rising? Did you steal that from Godzilla?" Because
They stole it from me.
there are significant thematic overlaps between the two stories, and I'm not, it just happens, I didn't know what a year ago, I didn't know what the story of Godzilla was going to be.
And if you saw the majority of the American trailers, you never would have thought that movie was going to be what you saw.
Right.
Well,
Right.
Rick says Godzilla is much more powerful than he's been in other movies.
Well, yeah, things only can get bigger and better.
Yeah, I guess so.
But as I was saying, when I said to Mike and Matt and everybody else that there was a slight Lovecraftian element in the film, I thought, and that's probably influenced your writing. You probably had a similar inspiration here.
Yeah, I can see that there is something there. Certainly Godzilla and the antagonists aren't great old ones, but there are some scenes that are there's a scene of a panicking child and woman on a train where she just breaks down into insanity, and I thought, yeah, that's a Lovecraftian moment right there.
It should be like Potemkin, where she loses her stroller.
Yeah.
Great film by Eisenstein.
Right.
That would be good. Very original.
Matt, if you need to go, you look tired.
Yeah, I'll try and check in on Sunday.
That sounds good. Get some rest.
I'll see you, buddy.
We already saw. I just want to say we already saw Potemkin in The Untouchables too.
I saw it even better in The Naked Gun.
Yes, that's true.
My lawnmower, it's the Pope, oh no.
Okay. See you, Matt. Thanks for stopping in. Pete, you mentioned the lady going nuts or going insane or whatever in Godzilla. Have you guys have probably heard people make the argument about why that seems kind of not very realistic, I guess is the best way to put it, about people seeing Cthulhu and going insane. Sure, he's ugly and all that, but I totally disagree. The first thing that always occurs to me is, if you've ever been, you see a big tarantula and you're like an inch or two away from it, this feeling of complete revulsion and disgust you get. Now, because it's completely alien, in a sense.
I think
that times, a mile tall.
Yeah, but I think even beyond that, I think that the representations that we have of Cthulhu are still grounded in our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I'm working on writing this right now, and I think that the issue with any of the great old ones or the outer gods is that their very presence warps the universe. It makes it unreal. It messes with our perceptions of reality, and it tells us that our perception of reality is completely wrong. It is not the image of the god that drives us insane. It's what they're telling us about the universe that we've built up or think we've built up in our heads.
I like that a lot.
It's the same kind of thing. If you have if you had a devout scientist, a devout atheist, and all of a sudden, I don't know, pick your occult moment.
Right.
Dracula, werewolf, whatever. A ghost. This would completely rock that person's world. It would turn everything upside down. I think
conversely, if a very devout Christian that intensely believes in Jesus and the afterlife and everything suddenly found out that there absolutely no questions asked, no such thing,
Right.
that could possibly, yeah, I see exactly what you're saying.
Right. It's not just the image, it's the impact they have on the universe and the impact they have on our reality and our perception of reality. And that can be just as powerful. In fact, perception is often more powerful than reality.
Well,
Nick, is that a drill press in your back behind you?
Yeah, I'm at my friend Matt's house.
Okay.
He's got. That's also a big creeper behind me.
Yeah, that I could identify, but here's like that. All right.
What were you going to say, Rick?
I was going to say you're almost describing Ramsey Campbell's Renders of the Veils.
I am. I think that Ramsey has hit on something very important in that story. Yeah, the Daeloth entity is also touching on that issue. Well, yeah, that's where I stand on that. Yeah, and and I talked about this in a post a couple weeks ago. Cthulhu is not just some muscle-bound guy with wings and an octopus on his head.
Right.
That's the best representation of some primitive guy. And if you've ever played Telephone or any of those similar games, you know that things get translated and mutated very quickly. So,
well, and in the Call of Cthulhu, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he describe it as he's basically saying this is not what it looks like, but the closest I can come to describing what
right.
it looked like is these descriptions.
Right, and even the statue was partly a man, partly a dragon, partly an octopus thing, but none of them. I can see that being very influenced by the culture that it comes out of.
Mm-hmm.
So, those are my thoughts on the matter.
There's also something similar in Frank Belknap's long The Horror from the Hills, in that Chognak Fong is not really this elephant thing we see.
Right. It's nice to describe him as an elephant, and that might be our best approximation, but he's not an elephant.
What you said about culture a second ago makes me think of when I was talking to Sandy Peterson a couple months ago, and I actually got him on videotape when he talked about this, and we've talked about it too, about Ramsey. I think it's Ramsey. No, it's not. It's Cody talks about it, but it's not really his theory. Whose is it, Rick?
Brian Lumley.
Yeah, Brian Lumley, where that wasn't really Cthulhu in the Call of Cthulhu that the boat knocked over, and he's like, yeah, I can see that, but you talked about the culture, which made me think of this, Pete. He's like, but I think they're missing the point. It goes even further, and that is that the steamboat, it was a steamboat, right, was the most powerful thing on Earth at the time, and so basically what he was saying was the most powerful weapon, most powerful thing mankind has, just knocked him over for a second, and that's it, and he immediately reforms. If it had been written after the 50s, it would have been an atomic bomb.
Right.
That same thing would have happened.
Well, August Derlitz went that way in The Black Island,
mm-hmm.
which I thought influenced the Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
In the very opening scene.
Right.
And
that's the atomic bomb one?
Yeah, that's where they drop an atomic bomb on Cthulhu, and it just causes him to reform.
Right.
And by the way, Pete, did you catch that reference to the mane?
There were lots of little things that I wanted to go back and look at. But
yeah, I was wondering about that too. Did Godzilla sink the mane in 1898?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, okay, so my son is working on doing do you guys know Neil Gaiman's speech, Make Good Art? He has this speech where he goes, your wife runs off with a politician, make good art.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Your house burns down, make good art. Well, I'm working on my own version of that. your great uncle gets jostled in a bar and dies. Make good. No, blame it on Cthulhu. No. You know, your cousin disappears in a subway accident, and his bones are found gnawed by rats later. Blame it on Cthulhu.
Yeah, we read that story and saw that movie.
Yeah. So yeah, but I want to go through all the great stories and just pull out all the scenarios that pretty much have some very reasonable explanations. Because Professor Angel is in his 70s. He gets jostled in a bar by a couple of thugs. He might actually die, particularly in the 1920s Providence. Blaming it on Cthulhu just seems like very convenient.
Yeah, that poor guy gets blamed for everything.
He does. But now, you can go back in time, Rick, with this Godzilla stuff and just say, yeah, anything between 1948 and the present day, blame it on Godzilla.
Right.
And although I will say this, I thought that this was there has been a theme among critics that every disaster movie since 9/11 has been a 9/11 movie. And this is the first, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but there's been there's been this running commentary that that was such a hit on the American psyche that you can see disaster movies using that imagery, particularly the falling buildings and the clouds and whatnot. I think Godzilla is the first movie to deal with the tsunami and the nuclear power plant.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That came immediately to my mind.
Right. And I don't think it's an accident. I think it's a purposeful move away from 9/11 and to not make this a 9/11 movie. So,
on the perceptions of what you were talking about a minute ago, on the message board, Ken Scroggins says, perceptions of reality affect reality itself, parentheses, the quantum observer effect, something that could affect both perceptions and reality itself could turn everything uncertain. It would be likely to affect the quantum functions of the human brain. And he gives the example of, I think, a movie that I've recommended several times and is on my movie list at the Lovecraft eZine. You see this breakdown of mental functions when confronted by an alien cosmos in the film The Corridor.
Yep, I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Which I maintain is a very Lovecraftian movie, and some people.
Yeah. One that.
Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Greg Bear's novel Blood Music, where a good portion of the human race becomes a singular creature, and their concentrated mentality begins warping space. One of the things he's talking about is that if you can get enough consciousness concentrated, you might be able to affect space-time in the very fabric of the universe.
Have you ever read Charles Strauss's Lovecraft Archives?
Yeah.
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 And this goes back to my theory that, not my theory, my interpretation for my work is that most of the great old ones are singularity events.
I love listening to you talk about that.
I love I'm sort of taking David Brin's concept in his Uplift universe and merging it with singularity concept and merging it with Lovecraft, in that I can imagine through some process an entire planet becomes a singular event, and the thing that emerges from that consciousness is Cthulhu.
Which is why, and I'm sure this was on Hawking's mind, which is why Stephen Hawking says that artificial intelligence is probably the worst thing that could happen to mankind, because he's afraid of the singularity and, in turn, of us all turning into Lovecraftian monsters.
And
he didn't say that, but we all know what he meant. So.
Yeah. And you can then if you want to run with that, you can look at Azathoth as a retired conglomerate of singular events. A second stage singularity event where multiple singularities have just said, yeah, we're going to not bother with being part of the universe anymore. We're going to settle down, and we're going to settle down together. And we're just going to sit in the middle of the galaxy, and occasionally we'll spawn out some seed. But pretty much we're just going to let everybody sit around and look at us, sitting here doing nothing.
Was it the Eye of Eternity? David Conyers and illustrated by Nick.
Yeah.
Ducker, where scientists were looking through the telescope, and basically they looked at Azathoth, and then they were screwing up reality. They look at Azathoth and whatever. It's been a while since I read the book, a couple years, but they'd think of something that would happen. All right. Do I have that right? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, let me get a drink. I'll be right back.
Okay. You remember that, Rick?
Yeah, I remember that, screwing up reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, by the way, the Eye of Eternity.
Isn't it Infinity?
Eye of Infinity. I'm sorry. Yes. Well, if you're going to buy all these books, by the way, go to Lovecraft eZine and go to the books page, because if you click on the link there, Lovecraft eZine will actually get a little bit of money. But that aside, the Eye of Infinity also has a really did a really good job with making Shoggoths scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is how I view these creatures, and once you start looking at it as aliens or alien conglomerations, a lot of things start to make sense. Now, if you look at Cthulhu as a giant singularity creature who's somehow fallen out of favor with whoever and has been imprisoned on Earth, then you might think that all the creatures that are coming to Earth are coming because Cthulhu's here. And you can parasitize off this giant, powerful thing.
I just remember in that same talk with Sandy, he said, what were we talking about? It's recorded, though. I'll have to look it up. You and he should talk about this next time you see him, next convention you see him, because he was talking about, I remember what it was, at the Mountains of Madness. What did he see that was so horrible, or was that it?
Yeah, it's in the Mountains of Madness. It's what Danforth sees when he looks over the city. Yeah,
well, Sandy said something about maybe Cthulhu is what humanity eventually turns into, which I just thought of that when you were...
Well, if you read my story in Future Lovecraft, in the halls of the Yellow King, I do have humanity turn into a great old one. And
I don't think I've read that one, actually.
Yeah. It is the natural progression of species that underneath the... My theory is that the star-headed old ones, one of the reasons that they create species and create planets with species is that so they can test out and see what would happen during a singularity event, because they're too afraid to do it themselves. They know that they're on the verge of it. They could do it anytime they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But they're scared. So they create races to do it for them.
Were you here when Nick Mamatos was here?
Yeah.
Remember him talking about he doesn't believe the singularity will happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he really didn't get into why. I don't remember him saying why he doesn't. Yeah,
well,
almost inevitable.
There was a recent paper just put out by mathematicians working on AI where they said, like, the nuances of consciousness are not expressible mathematically. It was a really, really interesting article as to things about.
Yeah, that's definitely a good argument.
Yeah. I think, and that was to prove that AI could not happen. Yeah, I remember seeing the blurb about that. It's in my stack to read.
And well, it wasn't so much to prove that AI can't happen so much as that was something when they were trying to do the math and whatnot, they realized reached an impossibility. They kept adding one and not getting chair back as a result.
I personally feel that argument's a bit of a cop-out, but I'm not a scientist. Pretty smart guy, but I'm not a scientist.
Yeah. It all comes down to odds and
yeah. Well, if our consciousness, if our brains can happen, via the blind watchmaker, of evolution, then surely it can happen with some guidance, right?
Yeah. The thing that it doesn't bother me. The thing that interested me most in the last 30 days was the creation of a semi-artificial life form.
Oh,
yeah. With artificial DNA.
Is it semi though?
Well, it has 3 artificial base pairs. So.
Yeah, I thought 100% handwritten. That's what they're touting at least.
Yeah. You raise a good point. Is it completely artificial? It's, I don't know, semi-artificial. Is it just a tweak? It's interesting, and I'm actually more interested in why they did it than they actually did. They did it just to prove that they could.
I was about to say, yeah.
That sounds like a horror movie line.
Well, yeah.
Nothing will go wrong. Nothing could go wrong, I promise.
But they were very excited because they said, "Look, we only have 4 base pairs right now, and you can code all this information with just 4. But imagine what you could code with 7." And I'm like, no.
And then imagine destroying the world.
Yeah. And I think I've seen this movie. It's called Species, right? You
know what, though? There's a very, very good show called Person of Interest on TV right now. It's in its 3rd season, and it's about artificial intelligence and possible singularity event. But the really interesting thing about the show is they snuck it on the air by making it at first be about this machine, this computer program that this guy invents that can, with enough information and all the cameras out there and all the information available to it, getting access to everything, it can predict someone that's going to be in danger or someone that's going to be killed. So that's how they start the show, right? And sneak it onto the air. It's like an action show.
Right.
But the creators were really like 6 months ago. They were talking about how they did this on purpose, and what it's really about is artificial intelligence. But they said, if they'd have gone to the network and said, we want to make a show about artificial intelligence, they would have been, no, I don't think so. So they snuck it in backwards. So.
Well, that's how that goes back. That's like in the 1960s when I used to watch The Outer Limits.
Mm-hmm.
I watched The Outer Limits for one reason: you got a monster every week.
Right.
But those shows were good science fiction concepts, which I didn't appreciate till I was an adult.
Right. And the same thing could be said. Star Trek was wagon train to space, right? But there are a lot of morality questions and lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And it broke a lot of boundaries, and it presented on television things that people needed to talk about but were afraid to.
And just to keep things going, we got a lot of guys destroyed by phasers and women in great miniskirts.
Yeah.
Green women in miniskirts.
Well, but how do you get that message across? In fact, that's the story I'm working on right now. Is how do you communicate with a species that doesn't want to listen to you, but you have to?
Well, not just doesn't want to listen to you, but you have absolutely or very extremely as close to zero as is useful in common with. I mean, look at dolphins. They're on our same. They're another species on this planet. They're not aliens.
Right.
But yet they're probably as intelligent as we are, but we can't communicate with them in any meaningful way.
So long legs for all the fish.
Yeah. Well.
Legs for all the fish.
But what are we going to talk about?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to that thing. Douglas Adams, who wrote, human beings think that they're the most advanced species on this planet because they built cities and roads and multiplexes and travel to the stars in tin cans. And dolphins and apes think they're the most advanced species for exactly the same reasons, because they didn't.
I guess I gotta get
Yeah.
off.
Good night, Nick.
Later. Have a good night.
Oh, good night.
See you, Nick.
Nice to meet you, Nick.
So, it's all a matter of perspective, And I'm sitting here. I'll give you a great example. We all thought that Walmart was going to save, whatever. Every little town said, "Oh, get a Walmart in. You'll give us lots of jobs," right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? They're really crappy jobs, and they put all the other businesses out of business. And now you're stuck to that damn parasite.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I thought
all
you were
a
gonna.
matter of perspective.
I thought you were gonna quote the other Douglas Adams
No.
quote that I like about. I can't quote it exactly, but basically comparing humans to a pond or a bit of water in a pothole.
Yeah.
Thinking that this pothole has been made just for me. It fits me so perfectly.
Right.
Right up until the moment where the sun comes out.
Yeah.
And evaporates it. Boy, I really butchered that quote.
That's all right. We know what you're trying to get to.
Yeah, I hope so, because I didn't get
Just,
very...
just so you don't try to explain why 42 is the ultimate answer.
No. Well, it is the answer, but you don't know the question. That's the problem.
Right, we don't know the question.
Oh yeah, because here's the real quote. Jeez. This is rather as if you imagine a puddle waking up one morning and thinking, "This is an interesting world I find myself in, an interesting hole I found myself in. Fits me rather neatly, doesn't it? In fact, it fits me staggeringly well. It must have been made to have me in it. This is such a powerful idea that as the sun rises in the sky and as the air heats up, and gradually as the puddle gets smaller and smaller, frantically hanging onto the notion that everything's going to be all right, because this world was meant to have him in it. It was built to have him in it, so the moment he disappears catches him rather by surprise. I think this may be something we need to be on the watch out for."
Yeah, it's called religion, right?
Yeah, that too.
I mean, nothing against, but yeah.
Well, you don't have to be religious to think that the Earth is all about. It helps, but that the Earth is all about humans. Yeah. Are you hungover already, or?
No, I'm not hungover. It's been. So I was Wednesday night is trivia night, and my friend and I drank a pitcher and a half of beer each.
You weren't watching the final The Arrow on Wednesday? I'm shocked.
And then Thursday morning, I went to work and I had some meetings, because I can do those hungover. And then we went to see Godzilla Thursday night on the big screen at the IMAX theater, which I highly recommend, IMAX 3D. And last night I had the kids out, and tonight I'm out, and it's all catching up to me. I'm gonna have to crash for 12 hours.
Oh yeah, you're old.
Yeah, I can get by on 2 or 3 hours of sleep. It's not a problem, but I need to crash.
Wow, I wish I still could. Well, speaking of crashing, guys, that's what I'm going to do. Matt, it was really nice to meet you. I hope you come on the show more often and talk with us.
Sure, sounds fun.
What are we talking about tomorrow night?
Well, Peter Kleins is actually supposed to be here.
Okay.
But when we did a video test a month or two ago,
it didn't work.
His computer failed miserably, and he said he was going to contact me closer to the time, and he was going to get a new computer basically soon. And I emailed him earlier today, and I said, "Hey, Peter, are you still coming on the show tomorrow?" And I haven't heard back from him, so we may just be amusing ourselves once again, which is fine. We do that a lot. So we may not have a guest tomorrow, which is totally fine. And the next Saturday night, I announced this already, Pete, but you weren't here. Katie Parker from Absentia, the lead actress from Absentia, is going to be here. So,
The wife or the sister? I
the
can't.
sister.
The sister?
The sister.
Yes.
The wife?
The sister.
He said the sister.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, not the wife, the sister.
All right.
Yeah, she's going to be here. So.
Damn, that's a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Write that down too, people. Absentia.
Absentia.
I told her I was glad that, contrary to, well, I shouldn't say anything. She's alive. That's good because she's going to be on the show
Yeah.
next Saturday night. So.
Have you seen Yellow Brick Road yet?
Yes, I have, man. That's a disturbing movie, man, and not much disturbs me.
Yeah.
And I can't even say why, but you know what scene I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my
I know
God.
exactly what scene you're talking about.
Oh my God.
Right. But you know, I think in many ways that movie reminds me of The Corridor.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't
Yeah,
have.
I've got that on the Lovecraftian movies list because I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Yeah.
Have you seen it, Rick?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't know if you should, to be honest. Even though I recommend.
So many films to see and
Yeah.
books to read.
Yeah.
God knows when I'll write. You know?
Yeah. Well, guys, hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6 Eastern. Then thanks for coming on.
All right, Mike. Thanks for having us.
Good to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Talk to you guys soon.
Great.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Okay.